local broadcasting legend and man about town, Rod Remington.
Slammin', Sue. The category? Hermaphrodite Nazi sympathizers. And now let's mosey on over to Sue's Corner. Take it away, Sue.
Thanks, Rod.
Well, I have to admit I have a soft spot for the Rolling Stones. I was at Altamont Speedway in '69. I actually saw that guy get stabbed. I popped the question at my building's common use hot tub. Booyah. Not to worry, ladies. It's an open marriage. Most women find me intimidating. The teeth, the hair. It's a lot to take in, and I know it. Can I add a dash of Rod to this lady soup?
Hi, my name is Dr. Doug, your host and producer, and that was Bill A. Jones, better known to many as Rod Remington on the hit TV show Glee on Fox. And you know, besides acting, Bill is a singer, a really talented one, and a voiceover artist. Welcome to our studio, Bill.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Good
Doug.
to see you again.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
You know, Bill and I go way back. We go way back. How far back? Did
I've lost the number of years. I don't think that I must have been 3 at the time, because it's gone back a while. Yeah.
I think it was in the early '90s, something like that. Right?
It was before I was married with kids, I believe. So that would have been over 20, well, we celebrated our 23rd anniversary recently, so that would have been over 23 years ago.
Yeah,
so.
you were still in radio at that time.
I was.
And you come from Tennessee, is that right?
Yes,
You're a good old
I
Southern
do.
boy.
Yes, I am.
Tell me about that. What kind of kid were you?
People hear me out here and they go, boy, I don't hear any accent, and I'll say to them, well, you know, if you need me to, I can just put it right back on for you.
Like that.
And, you know,
so what kind of child were you? What kind of boy were you?
Oh, I was the kind of boy who didn't like being out in the heat and humidity. That's the one thing I never got used to in Tennessee, the heat and humidity. Matter of fact, one day I was with my grandfather and my older brother and sister and my aunt, and we were in my grandfather's river bottom where he had corn planted. Now, you're right next to a river, so there's a tremendous amount of humidity coming off of that, and you got about 90-degree temperatures in Middle Tennessee that time of year. And so we're hoeing, you know, the thing, and so I say to my grandfather, whom I called Dada Will, I said, Dada Will, I don't feel so good. And he raced over and got me before I hit the ground, pulled me over to this little dirt road that cut through the thing. Just at that time, a man was coming through with his pickup truck, had a nice big cold jug of water. Now, I'm told it's not the best thing when someone has heat stroke to pour cold water on them. But that's exactly what happened, and man, that water felt good, and that revived me. But two things. Ever since that time, I've never been particularly happy to be around heat with humidity. So Southern California with the dry heat is something that I dearly love.
Welcome to L.A.
Absolutely. And then the other thing is that as a kid, it got me out of a tremendous amount of work because my grandfather swore all of the other kids to secrecy because he was afraid his wife, my grandmother, and my mother would absolutely kill him for letting this happen to his child. And they didn't find out about it until my grandfather passed away. True story.
Bill, did you listen to radio a lot when you were a kid?
You know, I listened to radio a fair amount, yes.
How did you get into radio?
How did I get into radio? Oh my gosh. Well, because I was interested in broadcasting. I was in high school. A friend of mine said, hey, Bill, let's get into radio. At the time, you had to have a license. You actually had to take an exam and pass the thing so that you were qualified to be at a radio station. You had to learn all kinds of legal stuff, and then there was the broadcast endorsement, so you had to have a third-class radio telephone operator's license with broadcast endorsement.
Oh my gosh.
And you could either travel down to Atlanta, where they gave the exams about every day, or about once every 3 months they came to Nashville and would give the exams. So my buddy went in and failed his first time at the exam. A couple of months after that, they came to Nashville. I took the exam, got my license. And having a license was a big thing in those days. We're talking in the 1970s. And helping to get your way into a radio station.
Right.
This is before widespread animation and not animation, but automation.
CGI and all that stuff. What was your first station?
I got hired at the station that was nearest my home down in Dixon, Tennessee.
Oh, cool.
At WDKN AM and FM.
What?
WDKN. We actually one time.
WCAN?
One time on the air, I actually said, WDKN, which stands for We Don't Know Nothing.
Was that your last?
No,
gig?
that was not my last time, but the owner came in and had a discussion with me and said,
Indeed.
Bill, there are certain personalities on the radio who are very funny. And he quoted Cousin Brucey, who was a New York personality who was pretty well known at that time. Said, for instance, there's Cousin Brucey and others. And he basically said, I was not. So that
You
was,
sat up straight when he said that.
that was the last time that I did
Yeah, right.
that on WDKN, but I did continue there for a while and then went on to work in the Nashville market before I came to Los Angeles.
Oh, how long have you been in radio total?
Well, I'm no longer in radio. About 7 years ago, 6 years ago, 6 years ago, I was let go from a radio network along with about 20 other people at the same time.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And,
consolidation.
Yes,
Yeah.
consolidation, basically moving the jobs to a non-union facility
And that
out
was
of
in
state.
LA? That was in
We
LA?
were in Los Angeles. Yeah.
How did that change your life?
Did
Did it free you up for other things?
stopping it? Well, it's funny you should say that because for years I used to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning every Saturday and Sunday.
God help you.
Yes, indeed.
I remember those days.
And so I was pretty much a zombie. I
Yes.
mean,
Speaking of zombies, we have a clip later. But anyway,
yes,
go ahead.
exactly. That's perfect. It's a perfect tie-in with the clip of the zombie element later on. But I would be a zombie, and then toward the end of the radio thing, they changed it where you could go in and track your, your show,
Right.
where you could pre-record your show and you could do it basically at any time. You weren't live on the air anymore, and so you sort of lost some of the elements. But the thing that I gained is that I was no longer a total zombie, and
a much nicer fellow.
much nicer. I wasn't living off of caffeine so much, and a friend of mine points out that it was about that time that my on-camera career sort of took a nice ascent.
Yeah, well, you know,
what a
when
coincidence.
you lose something, it's to make room for something else to move in.
Yeah,
Huh?
yeah. But I have to say that I really did enjoy radio.
What do you miss about it most?
There's something about being able to express yourself, to say something, to make a comment on things in the world. My show was a DJ show. Basically, we were heard on at the peak over 200 radio stations nationwide, and I was playing Frank Sinatra style music, same kind of music that I sing these days. And so I'd be able to share special stories and special moments that called out to me with listeners, and it touched people. As a matter of fact, one of my listeners just came to one of my shows that I did in New York not too long ago, who's still in contact with me. I'm pretty
Bill,
amazed.
how did you get that voice? You have a radio voice. You have what's known as a radio voice. Did you work on that? Or were you born with
I
that, or
probably
what?
did work on it at one time. Somewhere I must have some tapes of me from WDKN, and
Were you talking like this
you
back
know,
then? or
might have
something?
been. I was so naive in those days, so naive because I never knew the other meaning of what I'm about to give you. I was known as Brother BJ, and there's another meaning to BJ I've since discovered.
Besides Bill Jones?
Yes, exactly.
I didn't know that.
But yeah, I just being in radio all of that time, you gradually sort of dial in a certain sound, and that was this is sort of a prototypical time sound from another time, because a lot of radio personalities these days don't necessarily
No, they
sound
don't.
like this.
That's right, and there are a lot of women are in there
yeah,
too. They
absolutely.
used to exclude women from
Yeah,
a
for
broadcast.
many
right?
years.
But not anymore, right?
And so
you have more variety, right? You got into voiceover work.
Yeah, because I was
also
in
here
radio,
in LA, right? So what's the connection between radio and voiceover?
When I was in radio, I always liked the idea of doing production and doing spots. And at one point, at one radio station, I was what you call a production director. So all of the local spots or local commercials would have to be voiced by someone. And I couldn't do them all, of course, so I would have signed them to different announcers. But that's sort of how I got my toe into voiceover. And I continued to do voiceover work in the Nashville market before I came here to LA. And then I do a certain amount of voiceover now. A lot of it very unsexy, things like, ladies and gentlemen, Please take your seats. The meeting is about to begin.
Wow,
You know,
that's exciting,
that is,
Bill.
you know, but it's money. You know what I'm saying here?
And
it's
it gets
money.
people's attention,
It's
too,
money, you know.
right?
And so
You used to do
you know,
trade fairs. Do you still do
yes,
trade
I used to
fairs
do
and
some
stuff?
trade show things.
I mean, he's the
using a
voice.
thing
It's
called
Bill the voice.
an ear prompter, where I'd stand in front of a display for some computer-related thing or another that I absolutely had no knowledge of, but I would sound like I did.
Right.
And I'd say, ladies and gentlemen, please step on over. We're going to be telling you more about the latest and greatest from Mellanox Technologies. And at the end of our presentation, we'll be giving away a $25 Amazon gift card. So please come on in. $25 in the next 10 minutes. Have a seat.
Now, what's your favorite kind of voiceover?
You know, my favorite kind of voiceover involves storytelling. It would be basically documentary type stuff. I just recently did some documentary stuff for Edward Jones, which is a big brokerage company. And in that, you're telling the story of a life, in this case. And so storytelling, documentary type stuff is my favorite as far as the voiceover.
Bill, I got a clip here. It's that Watchathon clip, and I want to play that for
Well,
folks.
this is a great example of me doing voiceover and on-camera
it's beautiful.
commercials.
It's a beautiful segue. Isn't
all right.
it? So we're going to play that clip right now. Watch this, and we'll be right back.
The biggest week in television is back. Xfinity Watchathon Week. Starting April 16th, enjoy free access to TV's hottest shows from Netflix, HBO, Showtime, Stars, and more with Xfinity On Demand or the Xfinity Stream app. You'll want to tap out of your regular life and go binge while someone else stands in. Good luck.
Well, Bill, that was a bit hilarious. And were you scared? I mean, were you scared?
It's so funny. The gal who is
That makeup was really good.
It was very good makeup.
How
The
many
gal-
takes did it take? How many takes?
we did takes all day long. I think we shot it for 2 days. It was ridiculous.
Good Lord.
But the gal who is the zombie in that is
Yeah.
a friend of mine. She performs in an all-female Leonard Skinner tribute band. And Deanna is fabulous. Deanna Hurst-Levine, if she's watching. And she just was such a good zombie. She was fabulous to work off.
I know. That was just, what a great clip that was. Do you have an agent?
Oh, I have several
I
agents.
know. You want to tell us the Agent Chronicles?
Uh,
Bill Jones Agent Chronicles.
Well, you know,
You have one for this and one for
yes,
that.
I do.
Right.
I have an agent for on-camera theatrical. Now, that sounds like stage work, but actually, theatrical refers to sort of an antiquated term of theatrical exhibition of movies. And so for on-camera
Films,
acting for television shows and for films, you know, regular acting, the type of which you would think, I have an agent for that.
Right.
Have an agent for on-camera commercials,
Right.
which is a little bit
that's a
different than
separate,
that. It's a
separate
separate
deal,
thing.
huh?
Sometimes you have actors who are represented by the same agent for both of those, but I'm separate, you know. And I have a separate agent for voiceover as well.
Voiceover,
And I have an agent for live performance, for singing. And I actually have an agent for trade show stuff, although that's pretty much dried up.
Good Lord. Okay.
I was doing that until about a year or so ago.
And you're a
so
member
not
of
too bad.
SAG, right?
I'm a member of Screen Actors Guild. I was
And
a
you pay
member
those
of
dues every
AFTRA.
year.
Every year,
Dang.
absolutely,
Well,
absolutely.
it'll pay off. It's paying off, isn't it?
You know, I am what you call in the minority of actors, in that I'm considered a working actor. Most people in our industry think if you make enough money in the course of the year to qualify for insurance, then you're a success. And fortunately, you know, knock on plastic, I have been doing that for a few years between all of the different things I've done, between you know, on-camera work at on television shows like Glee, commercials like the one you saw a moment ago, and one that's running currently for TurboTax, and you know, and other work as well. All of it sort of goes together, and somehow or another, I've been able to fashion a living, and I'm very, very grateful for that. I have a very modest career compared to many, many actors, but hopefully I can, you know, give some information to someone.
What I wanted to know is, how did you get that part on Glee? That was I never got the full story on that.
Well, you know, my agent called up and said, Bill, we want you to go in and audition for this television show called Glee. And I said, Glee? Glee? Like a Glee club? And,
like a Glee club?
Exactly. And,
Yep.
and they said, yes, that's right. Yeah, it's a newscaster. I'm thinking, well, what does a newscaster have to do with the Glee? All right, whatever. And so I got the script, and I went in and I auditioned and sort of held a moment and did a unique thing with it, and they called me back. That's what you do, you know, in this industry. You go for the initial audition. Usually they put you on tape these days. Sometimes you get called back and you're in front of real people, or they call you back and put you on to a second set of video. Anyway, I came back and did it and held a moment sort of in a funny way, and it got me the job.
It clicked, huh?
It did. Clicked. And first time I was on the set at Glee, I was having a lot of fun. I guess I was feeling my oats that day.
Where was that set? Where is that
that
set?
was at Paramount Pictures.
Oh, down in Hollywood, huh?
In Hollywood, Paramount Pictures. Ryan Murphy was pretty much using that lot exclusively at the time. And so we're on the news set, sort of like this set here. And just over from me is Jane Lynch playing Sue Sylvester, and I'm doing these things at Jane, and you know, flirting with her.
You're doing these Rod Remington things.
And I, you know, basically having a lot of fun with that. In the script, and this was the very first time that I appeared, and this did not end up in the final edit, interestingly, but in the script, she's giving a commentary. The Sue Sylvester character, played by Jane Lynch, who's brilliant and a good friend. She's giving this commentary, and she's suggesting that here in the United States, that we adopt the same kind of attitude toward, you know, young people as they have in Singapore. That if they do, you know, graffiti or whatever, that they should be corporally punished by the state. And so her big cue line, just before the camera throws back to me and my co-anchor, is, "Yes, we cane." And so they throw back to me, and the script has the two of us in shocked silence, And so I held the moment of shocked silence, and finally, after a while, I ad-libbed a line. I said, "We'll be back with more hard-hitting news after this." And it broke up the entire soundstage. Exactly. Everyone, ha ha, whatever. They never used it in the television show, which was a pity.
They loved you after that.
But they thought, hey, maybe this guy brings a little something to the picnic, and the fact that I'm doing these things and making eyes.
Right.
And next time I was on the set, Jane took me aside and said, "All right, no one's going to tell you this, but you know, the two of us are going to have a little romance, and you know." And so the role got blown up bigger than what was originally envisioned, and I'm very grateful. IMDb says 16. It was really 18 appearances on Glee over the 6 seasons.
Over 6 years, huh?
Yeah, over 6 seasons. Very grateful for it.
Do you like auditioning?
You know, there is an attitude that I have taken on when it comes to auditions that most of the time I'm able to put into my mind, and it works very well for me. When you audition, basically you're doing work. You are performing. You have an opportunity to perform. If it's a commercial audition, you have an opportunity to perform for 30 seconds or whatever. So this is an opportunity to do your craft. So some people say, "Oh God, I have to go to this audition."
What if they don't like you?
Who cares? You know. I mean, that's not your decision. I mean, if they like you or don't like you, it has so many things that have nothing to do with you. You know, the fact that they have sort of a predetermined look that they're looking for. Well, you maybe don't look exactly like it, or maybe you look like someone's brother-in-law, and they didn't like that. Whatever. It's beyond your control. All you can do is you can go in and you can do your performance the best you can, and then I walk out the door and I immediately forget it. That's my goal, is to immediately forget it. So oftentimes when I get a call from the commercial agent and they say, "Bill, you've got the call back," I have to go, "Okay, what was it I did? Oh yeah, I remember what I did. Now, what was I wearing?" Because you always want to try to wear the same clothes, you know, when on the callback and that kind of thing.
Right.
And so auditioning is fine. I enjoy it.
It sounds like it's fun.
It can be fun. Sometimes it's drudgery. Sometimes the getting to the audition is the worst part of it.
Can be a little tough, huh?
Also, things have changed
Remember to breathe.
in recent years. For theatrical auditions, they're oftentimes asking you to put yourself on tape. And of course, tape is an antiquated term. You know,
We call that legacy tech. yeah.
exactly legacy. I like that. That's very good. And so you have to either figure out a way to put yourself on tape, or you go to someone who specializes in that. And there's some expense and trouble involved with that, instead of the casting director actually hiring someone to direct the session and put you on the tape. But you know, casting directors are being, you know, squeezed just like everyone else.
Sure.
So that is a little bit of a hassle at times. But again, I just did an audition a month or so back for a television show called Mindhunter, which we got very close on. And the agent loved the audition. The managers, I have managers too. Yeah, more people to take a percentage of your income.
Business manager?
No, not a business manager. A manager for the theatrical end.
Do you have a business
things.
manager?
No,
I'm sorry to break
no.
you.
I am the business manager.
You are the manager. Okay.
And so, anyway, they liked the stuff. So, it's a chance to practice your craft.
And show what you got.
And show what you have.
Exactly. Do you have any other advice for young people breaking into the industry
You know,
here in Hollywood that came from Tennessee or something?
Well, you know, I've spoken to young people in college classes and what have you. Not that I'm the font of wisdom or anything, but I do have a few suggestions. As far as the nuts and bolts of what to do to get into this industry, there are plenty of books and online guides out there. That my sort of Bible before I moved here from Tennessee was a book by a gentleman named M.K. Lewis called How to Be a Your Film Career, or something like that, Your Film and TV Career. But I'm sure there are other books that are better than that. The suggestions that I tend to give end up in other ways. First of all, I have usually 3 suggestions that I throw out. One, before you come to Los Angeles, have a viable survival strategy, because most likely you're not going to get on a major motion picture or in a recurring role or a starring role on a television show the first few weeks after you arrive out here. So you have to have a survival strategy. And a lot of people say, well, I'll work as a waiter. Well, some people actually enjoy that. Some people find that fun. Some people find that uplifting. Other people get mentally pressed down by that and find it drudgery. And at the end of the day, you're exhausted and worn out, and your spirit is crushed. You cannot have a survival strategy that crushes your spirit. You have to have some, and so there are some people who do physical therapy or catering or dozens of other things. My survival strategy was to work in radio. Now that survival strategy, with the change in media and what have you, has sort of almost disappeared, unfortunately, through media consolidation and other things. But again, a survival strategy is really key. Also, I think it's important to make sure that you have enough financial resources before you come out here. I saved for I don't know, 6 years.
Wow, well, that's true for anybody who comes out to LA, because it's very expensive out here.
Working for 2 jobs in radio in Middle Tennessee, and saving my money, and finally, you know, I moved out here, and I wasn't immediately desperate, because you go into an audition room, and if you're desperate, man, it oozes out of your pores.
Doesn't it?
And so, survival strategy. Another important thing that was imparted to me from a wonderful acting coach who's still around and teaches cold reading technique. Her name is Candy Herman Kanicki, or is it Candy Kanicki Herman? Anyway, you can find her online. She said, have a life, have a life. Let's face it, the chances of you hitting a hit television show
Striking
or
gold.
whatever, it is somewhat akin to hitting the lottery. And so, you know, there are people who say, well, I'm not going to get involved in that relationship because I'm concentrating on my career. Or, well, I don't think we should have kids because I'm concentrating, you know, whatever. The idea is to have a life, a balanced life, because those elements, that life can help to sustain you spiritually and emotionally when this career, which is a bit of a crapshoot, doesn't necessarily always work out.
Good advice.
So
Yes,
have a life,
good
very, very
advice.
important. And then
And go dancing.
and go dance. Well, which actually create. You know, that is actually a good suggestion. Keep your That's one of the other suggestions I have is find something to keep your creative juices going. Some people join a theater company so that they can continue to work doing theater, doing stage work that keeps the juices going. You know, go dancing.
And some people sing.
And some people, like yours truly,
And we're going to talk
sing.
about that in just a minute. You know, I want to show another clip here of Bill's. This is something called "Don't Count That." Roll it, maestro.
Don't count that. 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 Don't count that.
Actually, with FedEx One rate, you can add more and ship for the same flat rate. So I didn't count that.
I just can't miss today.
Ship a pack via FedEx Express Saver for as low as $7.50.
Bill, you've always had kind of a quirky sense of humor. Did you
was
write
a
that?
fun
Did you
commercial.
write
I did
that?
not. I did not write that. Although I did get hired for that because I had a unique ability to be a horrible golfer.
That was my next question. Do you play golf?
You know, it was amazing. I was so bad that at the fitting, the day before the shoot, one of the producers sees me holding the golf club the wrong way, and he came up to me and he said, "Would you be interested in, taking a free golf lesson?" And so I did, so that at least I knew which end of the golf club to hold. And
you know how to look good.
And I remember we were shooting that spot, and I hit the thing, and the golf ball went off in a trajectory that sort of curled around to the right, that if it had kept going, it would have come back and hit me.
Boomerang ball.
It was pretty amazing, and the director, I could hear him, out of the shot going, "Wow, that's amazing." So, don't count that. They're one of the unique talents is being a bad golfer. So
What do you think? Here's my little question. What do you think of Hollywood or the entertainment industry? What effect does it have on people's health?
Oh.
Can it help? Can it hurt?
Well, as far as helping, I mean, there is an incentive to be in shape. There's an incentive to be in good physical shape because, I mean, if you go into an audition for someone who has to ride a bike cross country or whatever, obviously if you're not in shape, you're not going to be able to do that. This is a culture that asks people to be fit. It is also a culture that does, for certain roles and for commercials in particular, embrace people of different looks and body types and what have you. But there is a pressure for a tremendous number of people that sometimes can be detrimental. And so you have people who turn to alcohol, who turn to drugs, who do all kinds of things to try to keep their weight down. And so it can be detrimental. I think one of the things that you can do, because I think mind, spirit, body are all connected, is to try to find some ways to keep in balance. And so that's been one of the biggest challenges for me over the years, is to try to keep in balance because, very frankly, I have used food as something to sort of sedate myself over the years. And so my weight has fluctuated. If you look at some of the clips and what have you of me over the years,
Yeah, Bill,
see
you're
a
looking
guy.
pretty lean.
Thank you.
Look at the contours of his face. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
well,
wonderful. Look
yeah,
at that.
Thank you.
On
Thank
a
you.
new
But-
program, I love that.
But yeah, it's sometimes detrimental to your health.
Yeah.
So I
It's a
think
lot
you
of
have to
stress.
have
It's a lot of stress.
you have to have your head screwed on
You
pretty
do. You really
securely.
do. Yeah. When did you start singing? Were you singing in the shower when you were a kid, or what?
I was raised in a fundamentalist thing called the Church of Christ. I tell the story that we not only thought that the Methodists were going to hell and the Baptists were going to hell,
obviously.
but we were going to hell too. Actually, no one gets out alive. Everyone's going to hell. But the thing that we had was congregational singing. And so everyone sang. But in addition to that, my family, my extended family, with my maternal grandmother and grandfather, we were musical, and it was country music growing up. And so as a little 6-year-old kid, I remember singing on a local radio station in Waverly, Tennessee, WPHC, big markets, I'm telling you.
The biggest.
Singing on the Jimmy Bell Country Roundup, or whatever it's called. I was singing, as a 6-year-old kid, things like Folsom Prison Blues. I hear the train a-comin', it's rolled around the bend. I ain't seen sunshine since I don't know when. I'm stuck in Folsom Prison. A 6-year-old. What were they thinking at the time? But anyway, singing stuff like that. So I was singing as a kid, country music, singing with the square dance band. Somewhere along the way, my aunt, who was more like a sister, she was younger than my older brother. She was a late arrival on the part of my grandparents. My aunt was very talented, very outgoing. And my sister, who were both singers and they played guitar, and myself were in the office of a purported talent scout. And looking back on it, I think the talent scout was interested maybe in more than just my aunt's talent, looking back on it. But I remember he basically, had lots of, wonderful things to say about my aunt.
It pays to have a nice aunt.
Had some nice things to say about my sister. And then he just sort of looked at me. I was probably about 11 at the time, just sort of looked at me and he said, "And you can't sing." And I took this in sort of deep within me for years and sort of felt inferior and just sort of thought, well, I really can't sing. But in spite of that, I went on and I did different musical roles through high school and in college and then after college. And it was finally, I did a show called Little Night Music at Circle in Nashville at the Tennessee Performing Arts Center, that I was doing the role of Count Carl Magnus Malcolm, a horrible womanizer and dragoon, and kind of a role that actors just love to sink their teeth into. And there was a Sondheim song called "In Praise of Women," and I remember it still. Capable, pliable women, undemanding and reliable, knowing their place. Horrible character, obviously, politically incorrect. But I sang that song and I felt so good singing it. I remember thinking to myself, F that guy. Just screw him. He was wrong. And I started singing and feeling very good about that. Studied with a wonderful voice teacher who had a big effect on my life. And then moved out here and stopped singing for about 15 years, ironically.
Yikes.
Yes.
And got it going again.
Got going again. My wife works in the travel industry and at the time was representing a cruise line up in Alaska, and there was the talent night. We were on one of the cruises, and I sang, and it sort of got juices going, and one wonderful coincidence after that has occurred where suddenly I started working with 17-piece big bands, and suddenly people were literally walking up to me with a stack of arrangements, orchestrations for big band, and saying, "Here, take whatever you want," and other doors opening to me. I performed with one of the Glenn Miller orchestras, not the original Glenn Miller orchestra, not that old.
Not that old.
And I've performed with other, orchestras. I've toured in a show called Battle of the Big Bands with 30 musicians on stage. And just recently did my first show in New York with the wonderful jazz pianist Lenore Raphael and her trio. We filled the room. We totally filled up the Triad Theater. And so it's been a wonderful thing, and it's been a wonderful godsend to me as, again, the thing I talked about earlier, having something to keep your creative juices going. I remember auditioning for Glee, and I wasn't so totally captivated in my mind by the audition process that I was, moribund or straight-jacketed by my emotions. Instead, I was thinking of lyrics of songs, trying to remember, what's that lyric to that song? Whatever. And so it's been a godsend for me. And as I say, it's the best antidepressant I've ever taken.
Well, I was just going to ask you that because I've danced to you several times, and Bill sings with the heart. He sings from the heart, and it must do something for you. What does it do for you singing?
Well, just literally when you breathe in air and breathe it out, it's an aerobic thing, and it feels good. It just feels good. It releases endorphins. And the wonderful thing about singing is that it's not in a studio just with other actors. It's usually with an audience. And that audience, by you releasing these sounds, the audience is moved in a positive way. They react back to you, which helps to give you, again, another boost. It's this wonderful loop of love and emotion. And when it's working, it's just a great
It's
thing.
really working. Where are you performing now? Any place local?
Well, I perform all over the place. I actually, since this may be seen some months after the fact, after our taping date, the best way to know where I'm performing is to sign up for my Bill Jones Totally Shameless Self-Promotional email list.
Yeah, truly.
That is the name of
Truly.
it. That's the Bill Jones
Get on
Totally
his
Shameless.
newsletter
Yeah,
list.
exactly.
Get on-
my
how can they
email
find you?
newsletter,
How can they find you?
and you can do that. You can go to BillAJones.com. Go to BillAJones.com, and there's a link there that says sign up for Bill's newsletter, and I will see to it that you know where I'm performing. But I'm performing a lot of places on a recurring basis. I perform on a regular basis with a group called the Big Band Alumni over in the San Fernando Valley. Perform up in the Thousand Oaks area with the Harry Sullivan Orchestra. Perform with another band over in Burbank called Flight 584. I've been performing with smaller groups as well recently, and I believe I'll be going back to New York because the booker there was very pleased with what we did recently. So, and I'll be performing actually in North Carolina a couple of weeks after the taping date of this. I'll be working at the Halls Cultural Center with a jazz trio, and then doing a couple other dates while I'm there in the Raleigh-Durham area.
Holy moly. You have some CDs for sale.
Yes, I actually do.
Can we see those, please?
Funny you should mention CDs. He said, shamelessly self-promoting himself.
Shameless.
Exactly. Here they are. I recorded one, oh gosh, it's been about 10 or more years ago. The bottom one here, which is Sinatra music. And it's called Frankly, duh. And so if you like, Sinatra music, it's basically my take on the chairman of the board. And then this one here, I've heard that song, Big Band Songbook, is my love affair to music of the big band era, and includes not only a full orchestra, but also a couple of tracks with a trio of singers doing the Andrews Sisters type harmony on Don't Sit Under the Apple Tree and Chattanooga Choo Choo, and also my friend Bonnie Bowden, who's a wonderful singer, sang with Sergio Mendez for many years. She's on about 3 tracks, duet material. Things like At Last are on here. And,
I love that song. Well, Bill, we're going to close.
You can find these at BillAJones.com.
BillAJones.com.
Click on Singer and then on CD.
We're going to close with a clip of you singing for an orchestra. But before then, I want to thank you very much for being here. Wild Bill. I call him Wild Bill because he's so wild anyway.
It's been a pleasure.
And it's been a pleasure having you, and it's been a pleasure being your host and producer. My name is Dr. Doug, and thanks for watching. See you next time.
This is a song made famous by a cat by the name of Robert Casoto. This is a song associated with Robert Casoto. Oh, the shark, babe, has such teeth, dear, and he shows them, go ahead, really white, just a jackknife, as old MacHeath, dear, but he keeps it out of sight. That shark bites with its teeth, babe. Scarlet billows, they start to spread. A fancy gloves, though, has old MacHeath, dear. So there's never, 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 never a trace of red.